Namaste, Galactic family. Welcome back to my channel, Indigo Angel. Welcome if you're new, and if you're returning, don't forget to hit that little notifications bell as you come on into this dimension. And as always, thank you for your continued love and support of my channel. Namaste. Today I'm going to start with a quote from Manly P. Hall from a Tree of Life video that I watched earlier, and I'll leave a link in the video description so you can go and watch this video too if you want to see the quote. But the quote goes, "Your experiences have brought you to this level of perception. Your struggles have not been in vain, as they have given you the wisdom of divine understanding. So do not seek approval from lower levels of awareness, as you will be disenchanted by the futility in trying to conform to a place that you have outgrown. Perceive what is within your elevated frequency of awareness, and you will continue to rise to new heights of wisdom." So this quote really hit my core, considering all of the things that we're going to talk about today in this video. So we're going to talk about the Tree of Life, because this is one of my most favorite subjects and verses, and also shedding some light on the Cosmic Mafia and the underground mafia who seeks to suppress this knowledge. And all of the manipulation that's playing out within its own cosmic field. So there is a lot of distortion when it comes to this information, because sorry, my throat's a little, because not only is there feuds over the control of great works of literature, but also we are in a time of information wars and cancel culture. So you'll see a lot of this really starting to infiltrate the higher consciousness community as things keep being presented that like to turn people against its own discernment, like to turn people against its own gnosis and its own connection with the divine by demonizing ascended masters, demonizing I got my chai tea with almond milk. It's so good. Basically demonizing angels, demonizing things that people have used for centuries and have connected with throughout the history of the creation of mankind. Everything is always labeled like a white and a black, a good and a bad, instead of realizing that all forms of existences, etheric, astral, cosmic, spiritual, are all working in a greater sense towards the higher evolution of humanity. On some level, they've all been connected to an aspect of creation that basically defines the rise and the fall of humanity. And so anything that can be demonized at this time is being demonized. Like I said, it's a part of the time of the information wars that we are walking in, the time of cancel culture. And so this all creates a nice jambalaya that we all get to basically sift through to try to discern what's aligned and what's not. And that's honestly a common concern that I do get from people the most, is how do you know what's true, and how do you know what's not, and how do you discern the truth? Because there is a lot of drama that's playing out in the cosmic realms. There's a lot of implants and even possessions that are playing out in this community. So how do we stay sovereign and authentic through this? But there's also a lot of bullies on the playground, so to speak. So this is what and who I'm calling the Cosmic Mafia. And we're going to talk more about this Cosmic Mafia today in this update. And I also just wanted to state, as well as a disclaimer on this video today, I can neither prove or disprove any of the information that I present. I simply just present what's true to my own gnosis and perspective and experience and guidance from the divine, from guardian consciousness. Guardian consciousness to me simply means through its spiritual forms and through its cosmic signatures and its radial templates and however you choose to see it through the cosmic nations, that this consciousness is the consciousness that's closest to God. And so many people resonate with guardian consciousness and have resonated with it since the beginning of time. It's spoken about in most of the main biblical scriptures. It's in the Hebraic Bible, the Tanakh, also the Gnostic Bible, and also I do believe that it's even spoken about in the King James Version. And it's also been mostly made available on a greater level of teachings and a much more defined level of teachings through the following of the MCEO Freedom Teachings and the Voyagers books. And so I'm going to be talking about a lot of this today. And if you listen today, just know that you do so at your own gnosis. And that's a disclaimer that I would like to keep on all of my videos really genuinely at the end of the day, because everything that you've watched, including my content and other people's contents, you should always be listening in accordance to your own gnosis, and I support this. It is a helpful notion and helpful wisdom and discernment to not give yourself to something that you don't understand fully. Okay, because there's a lot of nets and there's a lot of snares, a lot of implants, and even possessions that are currently running and happening in a lot of the information that's being presented globally. When it comes to cosmic information, when it comes to any type of biblical gnosis or any type of teaching that's come forward, period. Even astrology teachings, like we think that this is a safe ground, but even astrological teachings can become distorted. And what and who defines whether something is or isn't distorted? Because all is a matter of perception or perspective at the end of the day, right? Okay, so what I do feel is important to voice, though, today in this video is that there is something that is currently affecting a lot of people, and it is a reality in the undercurrents and the undertones of cosmic knowledge. The truth that everyone has been thinking and observing, but just not saying. So what is that called? It's called the elephant in the room. And so I'm going to be addressing the elephant in the room today. So come on in, guys. Come on into this discussion, because there is currently a real mafia mentality trying to suppress eternal knowledge. And it all revolves around the universal tree of life and the teachings connected to it. And it revolves around a lot of limited mind perspectives of its historical account. And it revolves around the great literatures of our time that are supposed to be uplifting humanity into higher states of consciousness. But I'm going to get into that a little bit later more in this video, as I am going to explain some things to you more about the tree of life. But first, I'm just going to dance to my song a little bit here and release my tensions, because whew, I feel a little tense. So please stay and enjoy. Be sure to stay tuned into what I have to talk about today. You're not really going to want to miss this if you are called to this subject today. So I'm going to play a little song first for you guys. This song is called Catharsis, and it literally means the process of releasing and providing emotional relief. And let this music be your catharsis right now. So this is from a group called Art on Noise, And I will leave the links to this song in the description. I know you guys like these vibes. So I've been vibing on that jam for a minute. Woo! And I can feel it too. Feels good. I can feel the release, the catharsis. And I got some new earrings, guys. These I got off of Etsy and I absolutely love them. And my daughter braided my hair. So I got curly hair today. I love it. So these, what I want to talk to you about is the universal tree of life. And so these elevations that we feel, these rising into higher consciousness, this comes directly from your own organic imprint of your own tree of life, because this is the gateway to the freedom of your soul. That is actually a holographic geometry that defines the radial bone density of your body. I've always visually seen the structure as like the first level of the bone density of my body. So that's, to me, the first layer. That's the first level that you can get to internally. It would be through the bone structure. So I really feel that the lines in this structure represent that. It also represents a transfer system of your genes and your protein codes. So this is, at a fundamental level, what defines the cosmic race identity inside of yourself, is your ability to tune into those radial navigation and those radial templates and that radial design inside of your bone density. I feel that holographically, that's what we're working with when we are imprinting or visualizing this geometric structure inside of ourselves and utilizing it as an expansion of our consciousness inside of our body. Okay, so this organic geometry works to free one from the binds of the slavery contracts in your DNA and in your grow line. It also works with releasing the limitations of your noble desires in life and crucifixion wounds. So that's why it's so fundamentally important to work with the universal tree of life in your own practice, in your own return to source, because it's what unhooks these limitations that most people are dealing with the abundance codes, with what you can perceive yourself as being able to achieve and create in this world. Everything comes from this template. This liberation is provided through the divine emanations of the spheres, and what is considered God creation itself. So the geomancy of the universal tree of life itself is where this liberation is provided. The tree of the forbidden fruit is basically, it's a different symbol. It's like all the same symbolism, but it's worshipped in some cultures, and it's also feared in other teachings. So I've even looked into the Canaanites, and they forbid their people basically to plant trees and to worship the tree of life because they wanted to limit people's connection with the divine. And this was coming from the Elohim in this timeline on earth. And so the Asherah pole is representing this tree, and it became therefore objectified. So this is why I use this invocation to define the original objectification of woman. Okay, but the tree of life, it's incorporated into everything. It's spoken about in Genesis of the Hebraic Bible, the Tanakh, King James Bible, also in the Gnostic Bible. The tree of life holds all of the secrets of the eternal life and immortality. This is also according to the Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism. So this was actually the first historical account of the geometric science, the first place it was defined as a science, which is from the Zohar of Splendor, also the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formations, Mathematical and Geometric Account of Creation, and the Sefer Bahir, which is the Book of Illumination. So the original historical origins of these technologies are these original sacred books. And the universal tree of life, according to these books and studies, is meant to be altered. Okay, so this is another reason why I designed my own tree of life, is because according to, and you're supposed to alter this to your own gnosis, of course, what you define as your organic template of God's sovereignty. And one really has to be really ready on a level of mastery to begin to define their sovereignty in this way. So it shouldn't be taken lightly, but it should be something that is constantly worked on and re-architecturally designed in accordance to this. But it should be in accordance to what you define as your own original divine template, biologically, planetarily, spiritually, and cosmologically. So, and this is why I encourage you to work with the autonomy of the tree of life and activate yourself to your own interdimensional navigation. And this is why, like I said, I share my own understanding of the tree of life and what I have designed for myself. And so you guys seen that on my Aquila update. I created my own templates and I put the spheres in accordance to what I have studied and what makes sense to me in accordance to the grid keeping that I've done. Because the tree of life is considered the first level and the layer of your manifestation field in an atomic scale. And it defies the past life genetic and reincarnational karma because you're going right to basically the first layer of your manifestation field. So there's nothing in the way of you and your own God gnosis when you work directly with your own tree of life. This supersedes bloodline imposed karma and limitations, and this is where and how you clear here. So working with the structure visually and holographically, similarly to how you work with the chakra wheels, is what you need to do to begin to activate to this internally. The spheres and the lines themselves can extenuate from the basic 10 Sephira grid as to what's studied in the Kabbalah, to the 15-dimensional template, what's studied in the Kalantic Science that was published in 2002 by Asha and Adine. But several other forms of the Tree of Life have come forth over history. We have the Mayan cosmic tree. Some of you have seen that. They actually include Antares on this Tree of Life. You have the Crystalla Eternal Tree of Life. You have the Kalantic Science Cathara tree. You have the Heroes Gamos. This is Lisa Renee's Tree of Life. You have the Kabbalah tree. You have the Bodhi tree. You have the biological tree. You have the world tree, the cosmic tree, the Christmas tree. And even Charles Darwin used the Tree of Life to describe the conceptualizations of his theories of evolution and genetic transfer, which was something that I got into the other night, which was really interesting, even though I'm not like super big on his theories of evolution. I still like to take a peek at what's been brought forth, because everything I think should be looked at with an open mind. And the 10 Sephira grid can grow to as far as you can possibly imagine. The structure is designed to keep growing infinitely by design, to where most currently agree of the 13-dimensional grid representing solar ascension. So that means that there's 13 spheres in accordance to the solar dimensional expression of ascension. And ascension is defined by dimensions. It's broken down into dimensions so people can internally navigate this for themselves. They have yet to define this by a lunar account, but this is something that I've started working on, and I will present an extended planetary version of a tree grid according to the lunar gates in my next update with a 28 sphere grid. So I'm going to show you guys how it can go from 10 and 13 to 28 and how this structure can keep growing. But this expansion of the grid is how people feel they reach their highest potentials. And it's a way to have a structure to reaching these higher potentials into the 48 to 72 strands of the DNA activated, and to 144 dimensional consciousness and embody higher humanity and planetary codes. So the codes that activate your mind and heart into grid keeper and gatekeeper consciousness. Okay, so this reinstalls the new earth grids inside of your body. Biologically, the geometry is to run in your body, and it runs the new binary encoding, which I've been guided to say through intel that I've received, that the new binary codes are integrating at this time globally. The 010111 codes, the mathematical codes, these are all being upgraded at the Stargate signets at this time. But this is also what the Cosmic Mafia seeks to cover up. I have a blanket on, that's kind of cold. It's a very cold day here in Denver. It's overcasted. It's kind of just gloomy out, and it's very cold. So I have my blanket. But this is what the Cosmic Mafia basically seeks to cover up. They are on a mission to prevent those that they deem unworthy the accessibility to this information. Okay, there are literally leagues, or a mafia is what I'm calling it, a cosmic mafia that works against people trying to understand all of this stuff. They have entered into a bad guy finger-pointing mentality, demonizing of human ego-appointed fallen architecture, which simply carries the energy of the hierarchical duality and separation from source. And it's because they themselves are separated from source due to a cult mentality that basically forges destruction upon anyone using the following teachings the cult derived from. Okay, so I also ask you for your protection today for this part of the video, because speaking about this cult, it's a little difficult to talk about, but because they're always following me, they're always stalking me, they're always watching. They've already threatened me several times just for designing my own mechanics, for designing my own trees of lives. Okay, so they're really, the war is over the tree of life. They don't want this information to get out. Okay, but I'm not a victim to them, and I don't seek pity from anyone. I'm simply just not really afraid anymore, even though it makes me feel like it does to talk about it. I used to be afraid because at first it was the first time that I've ever been approached by this group at the time. And I was also under their threats and a lot of their fear tactics. But I've been seeing beyond this. Now that they've had second rounds of bullying, I can identify now more the rules and laws and restraints that they are under and must follow in accordance to the establishment that they serve. So these are the beings that run the underground cosmic mafia, and they have basically fallen in a possession that energetically stems from the literature of the Voyagers and the Chaotic science material. So I'm going to talk about today what a lot of people have been through and bullied and threatened not to talk about. It's been basically a deep silencing through virtual attacks that happens mostly in platform groups such as Facebook and YouTube chats. This is something conscious people deep into the cosmic realms have intuitively known for a lot of time and have been perceiving all along. They just haven't really been able to come forth enough to really talk about the intricate madness of the possession that's infiltrated this community. So I want to give you my story of my interactions with this mafia, so you can be made aware of what's really happening on the inside, guys. So I personally have begun studying the incredible literary works of Ashayana Dean, the Voyagers 1 and 2, and also the studies of Chaotic science. And I want to state that I love Ashayana. She was an amazing teacher for me. But I'm also ready to move on from this teacher. And I'm ready to push forward with what I'm guided and inspired to create. Because at the end of the day, it's limiting me and it's hindering me from my own growth. But I found this material long after my passion for the studies of energy mechanics ever came to me. And I will leave a link in the description to videos that I created regarding energy mechanics before ever finding the literature works of the Chaotic science, just to prove the point that this is my passion. Okay, not that I need to prove that, but I wish to clarify this to anyone that wants to receive this clarification. But basically, I love this literature. I've dived in for 2 years studying as much as I could. And over those 2 years, I learned energy mechanics very sufficiently from the KS teachings perspective. Again, this isn't my only perspective. Okay, the literature upgraded my intellect and my vocabulary. I became a fully studied, astute student of Chaotic science. Knowledge that is now part of my brain. Knowledge that I cannot undo from my brain. Okay, it's now a part of me, and it inspired me to become more with my education. I messaged the MCEO Freedom Fighter teachings once I felt I was ready to certify, something that they offered in the literature, and they informed me that they no longer offered the certification. But the secretary did grant permissions to use the literature in small study group settings. So that's what I've done. I've simply studied the material in small study group settings. Okay, I was very sad and I was disappointed about the certification program being discontinued. But one thing I had learned was energy mechanics, okay, and how to create my own authentic visualizations according to these energy mechanics. And I began recording myself and making videos of all the visualizations I had made that are authentic to my own understanding. And Ashayana does teach some visualizations in her books, and I encourage you to learn and check out the visualizations that she's brought forth because they are totally incredible. I used them for a long time before I started designing my own, and they're amazing visualizations. But I was inspired to design my own that had nothing to do with hers because I started to perceive the way that my own light body mechanically functioned inside of myself. And so I started designing my own visualizations according to my own energy body. And I realized that my own self-designed meditations and mantras are the fastest way to sovereignty, because believe me, you are your own best teacher when you start to listen to your own subconscious and then use this and apply this for yourself. This is how you get the greatest growth and expansion within your ascension, is you utilize your own subconscious knowing what the subconscious is prompting you to do and it is telling you to do. You start to listen to this voice. Okay. So, I mean, I studied the Kalantic science. I studied the Kabbalah, the Tanakh. I got through the Tanakh very quickly, actually. I read about half of it in one night. Okay. But I studied all kinds of other conventional factions of metaphysical sciences, quantum physics, several forms of energy types, cosmology, astrology. Madame Blavatsky is one of my favorites, Drunvalo Melchizedek, and all kinds of different books. But the designs for the visualization started to come to me when I started using the 13th sphere as a focal point as avatar energy. Okay, and I would pull this up from the core of the earth. Okay, so I then went on to create more of these visualizations, and now I basically share them with other people. And I'm writing a book on what I have created. And I'm very excited about this. But without ever knowing my truth, the Cosmic Mafia basically began exploiting me in their groups, sending me hate messages and vicious, threatening attacks. And I was basically being attacked for blending my own gnosis from the teachings and trying to grow while continuously citing my sources if I did refer to the material. Okay, so what I realized is that there are two different types of followings of the literature, all in which I feel has fallen victim to the possession of the literature to some degree. Okay, because once you start to get into this material, it has this very like seductive play on your ego. Okay, and it pulls you into the material. And so it takes a very strong person to really retain their gnosis when you get into this material. But I am calling the differences that has basically come from this reading, from this knowledge, from this literature. I'm calling them the established guardian networks and the unestablished guardian networks. And I'm going to tell you the differences. Okay, so the reasons I feel that the material may be possessed is because of the demonization of angels. Okay, the demonization of Jewish mysticism and sacred geometry. So when I tried to actually find original scripture that says Metatron is fallen, I cannot actually find it. And I've even looked through the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, I've searched the Dead Sea Scrolls because I thought that's where it would talk about Metatron's fall, but it's not there. So if anyone has this information, I would appreciate it if you'd send it to me. That would be great. I'd love to be able to see this. But basically, I personally feel like it would be wrong to have casted this fear-based belief into the collective consciousness if it's not in any actual historical account. So I've personally have held resistance to this ever since finding the material. And it was a huge red flag for me. And people ask all the time now if it's okay to work with Metatron. Like, people are in fear about this. I've even tried to contact Amanda Ellis because she channels Metatron to see if she could clarify more about this. But she never actually got back to me. But I feel like people who are in a constant state of connecting with the identity or the entity would be able to clarify some of this information, or at least have a knowledge of if it's actually in scripture somewhere. But basically, people are in fear to live at their own divine gnosis of what they feel if they've come into connection with this angel's presence. They're in fear of the angel. And this is another rule I feel in the possession of the literature, that the Cosmic Mafia imposes upon people that if you don't banish Metatron, then you too are a fallen angel. So the Mafia basically continued to post my angel invocations, trying to exploit me as a fallen angelic. So what I'm seeing is there's been a crack in the foundation of this supposed consciousness community. Okay, the established guardians. These are the beings who are obsessed with the teachings as the only way of life. They do not take account for any other historical accounts of the teachings. The teachings stand in the way of their own gnosis, following the rules of fallen Metatron and demonization of the flower of life. Anyone who speaks against this is immediately a fallen angel to these people, and they are out to blasphemize you and ridicule you as such, as a fallen angelic. If you use the word channeling, you are scrutinized against as a fallen angel. If you do anything other than what the word of Ashayana has said, you are basically harassed and bullied by the Cosmic Mafia. Okay, so it's the followers of the Kalantic science that are the Cosmic Mafia. Now, it's not everybody who's following this material is a part of this, but there is a large following that definitely doesn't seek their own gnosis in the literature or the material, and so they harass and bully on this account. It's basically a Cosmic Mafia mentality that does not support newbies trying to learn. In fact, they go out of their way to hinder these people. If they know that you are new to the community, they will bully them out of their interest and out of the groups. And then I've also have seen admins have to take down groups and change the names of their groups because the Mafia comes in to the groups and turns them into hate groups. And this is not about Ashayana. I personally do not know her. I personally have been inspired by her. And I'm not here to make her a good or a bad guy. Maybe she doesn't even know what's happening to the community following, that it's a war within itself. But what is clear is that the following that she's created from these teachings responds to those trying to grow from the material in a very hateful demeanor. They will actually blatantly threaten you and tell you that you are in danger if you support the teachings publicly. And so that's what I've been up against, is by being a fan that talks about it publicly, they have wanted to destroy me. So people become so possessed that they want to control how the world sees it. They want to control who gets to learn it. Okay? Why? Right? Okay, so what I'm seeing is that there is a darkness that has come upon the great works in this great literature, which is unfortunate. I myself have chosen now to distance myself from it as much as possible because I can feel the possession on the book itself. And so I'm just like not wanting to dabble in this. And this is no joke, family. I know many of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so just proceed with caution when it comes to this particular teaching. It's seductive and it's alluring, but there are many great works throughout history you can read that do not carry the same demonization effect and fear propagation. Some of you know that it is rumored that Lisa Renee plagiarized the Voyagers 4 years ago after its publication, and she has gone on to start a platform for Guardian Consciousness messages through Energetic Synthesis and AscensionGlossary.com, which I love. I love to refer to Lisa Renee's work. I can feel her authentic approach to her messages. I know that she is deeply connected to the Guardians in her own gnosis, and that's what she's bringing forth. I can tell she keeps the information very current, and I think that's why people like to subscribe to her, is that she keeps all of the Guardian wisdom current. Okay, but what I have heard is she had been supposedly gang-stalked and attacked and physically approached and threatened by the members of Ashayana's team. Now, I don't know if this account is true or not. I have nothing to do with it myself. So take it as a probability that could have potentially unfolded. But this is just another aspect that the Cosmic Mafia exploits continuously in these groups without having attained the truth. And so I've tried to reach out to Lisa Renee to request her story and ask her for an interview. I've done this a few times now, so I don't know if she has any intention on getting back to me, but I feel her account would deeply clarify the mysteries in the possession that's deeply seated in the driven mentality casted on these teachings. And so I feel I need to expose this. This is my truth. The truth shall set you free. These people are dirty and they are playing dark agendas. This possession someday is going to expose itself for who's really the controllers behind the mask. And this is for those of you that have really dealt with this. Okay, so this message today isn't for everybody on my channel watching. You might not even be aware of any of this. But there are a lot of people that have had a firsthand account with this Cosmic Mafia, and they have felt the cruel behavior from the people from these groups. And I advise you to just distance yourself from them and clear yourself from them, clear your timelines, and just keep pushing forward with your growth. But here's what I have observed about the mentality of the Cosmic Mafia after being initiated to the establishment through this seductively poisonous infection into the human mind, where you basically become entrapped into the matrix within the matrix. And so there is a Cosmic Mafia mentality, and I'm going to kind of go over this as sort of like a self-check for anyone invested in this, to see if you are yourself are being taken over by this possession. Okay. So there's a couple common things that pull people completely into the literature, that separates them from their gnosis. Is, for one, they believe in the Guardians before and after they found the literature. So this is the appeal. Okay, they have their own connections with Guardian consciousness. And so this is another part of the appeal. But again, this is to go through a self-check here. So if you are under the possession, or you are suffering from this Cosmic Mafia mentality, some of the signs are that you believe that you must stand as the Guardians' guardians through any means necessary: hate, threats, and violence. And this literature actually gives them a false sense of power propagating this abuse. They believe wholeheartedly that Metatron is fallen. And anyone who doesn't believe this is a fallen angelic. Okay, that was a red flag for me when I came across this part of it. They believe that the flower of life is evil. So if you work with this geometry, then they believe that you too are a fallen angelic. This again was another red flag for me. They believe that the word channeling is wrong. And they basically prosecute people for saying the word. So even if you understand how electrical imprints work into the mind, and how that channeling could be perceived as a form of your own DNA being taken over or possessed by another entity. If you use the word channeling, they're going to prosecute you for saying the word, and label you a fallen angelic. Okay, I just feel like that's a red flag for me, and it's a little too extreme. It's extreme. It's way too extreme. They believe that death is not an organic process. Okay, that was a red flag for me, because I personally believe that it's an organic process. I have followed Dan Winters on this, and he really breaks down the sciences of the death process at a much higher fundamental level of physics. And if you want to get more information on that, I suggest following Dan Winters, or at least reading his works or literature on death being an organic process. Okay, because this one should not fear these processes. Okay, and this is what it's creating. It's creating more fear. Also, they believe that you may get harvested or intercepted through life and death cycles. And I personally feel that harvesting is happening planetarily through the gates. But I also believe that conscious beings connected to source are given a choice. And I've actually seen this through my guides and through my own near-death experiences, that those who are connected to their spirit are given choice. Okay, so it's more of like the empty seeders and genetically modified humans, and that's honestly like a huge portion of the collective, is unconscious beings that are more subjective to these types of matters that are happening and playing out planetarily. But that was a red flag for me, because it's installing fear into those that shouldn't be installed fear into. And I think anything that propagates fear to stay connected to their beliefs is like a religious tactic. It's a cult mentality. So that was a red flag for me. And I've done guardian missions before where I've cleared these gate sites, but this was more geared towards to help and clear the unconscious collective primarily. Another Cosmic Mafia mentality is they do not discern between their own gnosis and the teachings. So what is presented is truth in their mind. They've been so separated from it. And the material is like really meant to do that to you. It creates a cult or religious mind mentality. So it's very actually hard to leave the community. You get attacked when you try to leave the community. Okay, so they also believe anyone who doesn't believe the same rules is a fallen angelic. They are living under fear, skepticism, and confusion. They plant fear into the astral, and they also often parrot off the information. So you'll notice there's a lot of people that are like constantly creating platforms to parrot the information out, like take word for word what she's put in the books and then create things for it. Most of the time, these types of people are attacked by the mafia at some point. And so I've always warned people when I see people starting to parrot the information of what could possibly happen to them, because I know of how the Cosmic Mafia runs. They will try to hurt these people. And there's also an entitlement superiority complex. as well. So, and if you've read the literature, you know all of this stuff is covered in the Voyagers books at a very extensive account as to why it's true and where this information has come from. But what I see is that there is a danger when people truly believe everything, that these parts of it become a red flag for me, because this is where my gnosis deep inside didn't resonate to my core, even though I do feel called to other parts of the material, such as stargates, the locations, and everything that calls to the grid working aspect of it. It very much resonates with me. So it's like you have to take some and you have to give some, and there's kind of a balance, and you have to maintain your own connection to the divine to sift through it. But I feel it's dangerous also, because for one, what happens is they give their power away to an outside source, and then they defend that submission of giving their power away to the power against their own gnosis. Okay, so that's very dangerous for one. And also embody the belief as their subconscious. So anything that goes against the belief internally is seen as an enemy of self-identity. Okay, so this is why it becomes very problematic, is because the attacks become very hurtful and they become very personal, because it feels like a direct threat upon their own character, which causes deep pain in the community of people following the literature, because now everybody's personally attacking everybody. And I feel this is a part of the art form of the possession. The identity gets taken over. Okay, and this mafia truly believes if you don't follow the rules listed above, that you are not a guardian and that you are a fallen angelic. So I'm here to say today, and I feel like I've been through this experience, so I can now talk about it on the other side. Okay, I'm here to say that guardian consciousness simply means those closest to God. Okay, and they present in many different forms. The strongest felt on earth here is in spiritual form. So this would be the Elohim, the Seraphim, the Cherubim, the Thrones, the Oraphim. They all step forward in your consciousness, and they can present as a galactic council, but not just the 6 universal star nations. They are also within the occult nations and the untold stories as well. You have to remember that all of these star nations came from the star systems that we look at in the sky tonight, and there are a plethora of star systems. Okay, so all of them have a story in accordance to the creational aspects here on Earth. All of them do, not just those 6 universal star nations. So they're all coming up from the unconscious collective. They're all coming up from the subconscious to become a part of this consciousness in this world. And some are just farther ahead in the game and have taken ownership over this. But 1,000 years from now, we might not even be talking about Lyra. We might not be talking about some of these ones, because there's going to be a transformation that happens. Okay, so because of this, this is just causing a lot of mass confusion in cosmic account, because nations not aligning to the Voyagers account are casted as fallen angelics to the Cosmic Mafia. Okay, so they're like the police. They're like out to try to hurt anything that does not go in accordance to this account of the cosmic story. So there's also the Unestablished Guardians. Okay, so if you feel you're an unestablished guardian, these are the ones who still enjoy the teachings, but don't put the material above their own gnosis. They are connected to the guardians, spoken of in the literature, but had a connection prior to finding the teachings and still have their own relationship with this consciousness. They may have been intrigued by aspects of the teachings, but they do hold resistance to certain beliefs within the teachings and don't adhere to the rules that are required to follow. Okay, again, because their own gnosis comes first. And they believe in other perspectives of cosmic account. So I would consider myself an unestablished guardian because I don't serve the establishment's agenda. I serve the organic agenda of bringing forth what I feel is closest to the current radial expressions on Earth through my own gnosis, including the occult nations. So if you feel the same as me, then maybe you too are an unestablished guardian because you're not serving the establishment. And I'm not even saying to not read the literature of the Kalantic Science or the Voyagers. It is incredible work. It's amazing. It's beneficial to study in a lot of ways. But you really have to hold your heart and your mind open that this is a perspective of this information. Okay? And we have to take an account for everything that's come forth throughout history, all of the great works of literature. Excuse me, sorry. It's what the Cosmic Mafia, sorry, my allergies have just, they've kicked up today, so I've been a little. It's what the Cosmic Mafia that surrounds the work has propagated in the community of cosmic consciousness. These people seek to destroy people who speak out about it. And if you want to know my personal beliefs, I'm an omniist, which means I hold my mind and my heart open to all studies, all great books of literature, history, science, and I read and I search for what calls to me on a soul resonant level. Then I create my own world with it and my own truths according to my own connection to source. So this is what I strive to bring forth. Every video that I make. Many people wobble back and forth from finding wells of great inspiration in literature and empowerment to then fear. They have welcomed a great evil. So when you're learning all of this stuff, discernment and focus of higher energies is greatly needed. And always use your own frequency gauge as your meter. Okay, if you feel resistance to something, there's a reason for that. So you have to really tune into your own subtlety body, and this can only be learned through experience. And we all must walk the path ourselves of finding our way back to ourselves. Okay, so I hope I shed some light on this issue today. I'm really hoping talking about this, I can now put this issue behind me and move on to better things. But I do feel like it needed to be addressed. Because I have an amazing update for you guys coming up on the lunar stargates. So I will be having John Shaughnessy on the channel soon after I get this update to discuss the celestial powers of the moon, because it's another perspective that's really cool to dive into. And as always, just know I have so much love for Asha and Nadine. I have love for Lisa Renee. I have love for all the people running this Cosmic Mafia too. I just hope that this video today helped them to see that you can unconsciously fall into the possession of this literature, and it can take over your own gnosis. And it can drive you to a lot of extremes. And so it's just really important to stay balanced in everything that you bring in terms of your studies. Just really stay balanced and always stay true to what feels right and good and true to you. And that's it, guys. So it's all versus the cosmic tree. It's people wanting to suppress the true knowledge of the tree of life. And it's just, you can't suppress this knowledge. You can't. It's too fundamental globally through all civilizations that have ever been here. And there's not one person owns this. Not one person can own this. Not one person can take this from humanity. It's a part of all of us to learn and understand this stuff. Okay, guys, so I love you all so much. I hope you're having a blessed day. Namaste and take care.